At a modest community center in Ohio, a sense of anticipation filled the air. Former President Donald Trump was set to address a crowd of veterans and their families. Red, white, and blue streamers hung from the walls, and every seat was taken. In the far corner, nearly unnoticed, sat an elderly man in a wheelchair, Walter Briggs, 87 years old, a veteran of the Korean War. His gaze was sharp despite his frail body. To most, he was just another face among many. Walter wasn't there for attention. He had waited years for this day. His nurse Clara had brought him into the hall that morning. "Are you sure about this?" she asked softly. Walter simply nodded. Hidden beneath his blanket was an old photograph and a worn envelope. His hands shook, not from nerves, but from time. He had just one question, a question that had followed him for decades. Today, he would finally ask it. As music played and Trump made his entrance, the crowd erupted into cheers. Walter remained still, eyes fixed on the former president. For him, this wasn't about politics. It was about a long-kept promise and a truth left unspoken. For Walter, this event marked the end of a personal journey. Trump approached the podium, smiling as he waved. Thank you very much," he said, flashing his familiar grin. The room responded with loud applause. Cameras flashed, veterans stood in salute, and a few shed tears. Behind the scenes, aides passed quiet updates. "Full house today, Mr. President," one said. "Veterans from every era, even Korea." Trump nodded. "Let's make it meaningful." Walter never took his eyes off Trump. As the speech began with praise for the military, calls for better veteran care, and tributes to heroism, Walter clutched the photograph tighter beneath his blanket. The photo showed 3 young men in uniform. Walter. Among them, and another named Eddie Carter. Eddie had been Walter's closest friend, and he had never returned from war. As the room applauded, Walter whispered, "He said you'd remember, Mr. Trump. He said if I ever saw you, I had to ask." Trump was unaware of what was about to unfold, but Walter's question would bring the entire room to a halt. Clara leaned in. "Are you sure this is the time?" Walter nodded. 65 years I've waited. There won't be another chance." She looked at him with understanding. "Who was Eddie to you?" she asked gently. Tears formed in Walter's eyes. "He was more than a friend. He saved my life and made a promise. Said Trump would understand one day." Clara was puzzled. "Trump wasn't even president then." Walter's voice was barely audible. Eddie said he somehow knew him. Said he had a message to deliver in case he didn't make it back. Clara didn't fully grasp it, but didn't question him further. She placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "When you're ready, I'll take you up there." The speech continued with stories of bravery and loss, but Walter wasn't listening. He waited for the right moment, the one where the world might just listen. The air conditioning kicked on, making the photo in his lap flutter. Eddie's youthful face stared up at him. Walter held it firmly. Then, as Trump spoke about sacrifice, Walter raised his hand. It trembled, but the gesture was full of purpose. "Excuse me, Mr. President," he called out, louder than expected. The room fell silent. All eyes turned toward the voice. Trump paused mid-sentence. A spotlight shifted toward the wheelchair in the corner. Walter took a deep breath. "I have something to ask you. Something I've waited my whole life to say." Security moved in, but Trump motioned them to stand down. "Let him speak." Clara rolled Walter forward. The attention of the entire room now rested on him. Cameras swiveled. Walter's heart pounded like it had in his youth. Scared, but steady. Trump leaned in. "Go ahead, sir." Walter's lips quivered. "Do you remember Eddie Carter?" Trump blinked. The name seemed familiar, though distant. The silence deepened. Walter raised the old photo. "He said you would." And suddenly, the room shifted. Trump stepped off the stage and approached. Gently, he took the photo from Walter's hands. He studied it. 3 young men in Korean War uniforms in front of a dusty tent. His brow creased. This can't be." Walter smiled faintly. "Middle one's Eddie, right one's me." Trump stared at Eddie's face. "I knew this man. He helped my father's business during tough times. I was just a boy then." Walter nodded. "He told me he delivered something for your father during the war. And if anything happened to him, I was to find you or your family and ask one question." Trump looked rattled. "What question?" Walter didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached under his blanket and retrieved a yellowed envelope. "This," Walter said, "has the question. Eddie gave it to me the night before he died. I never opened it. He said it was for you." The room was hushed. Trump stared at the envelope like it was a ghost from the past. He hesitated. "You never read it?" Walter shook his head. "It wasn't mine to read." The crowd leaned in. Emotions ran high. Trump took the envelope, turning it over. It was sealed with wax, stamped with a fading C. Trump murmured, "Carter." With great care, he broke the seal. Inside was a single piece of paper, folded neatly, handwritten. Trump unfolded it and read silently. Time seemed to stop. When he finally looked up, his expression had changed. His voice cracked. This changes everything." He looked at Walter. "It was meant for my father, but I think I was the one meant to read it." Clara wiped away a tear. Even the guards took a step back, solemn. "What does it say?" Walter asked softly. Trump's hands trembled. "It's a question, but not just for me. For all of us." He turned to the crowd and read aloud. "If I don't make it home, tell the Trump family this. I don't want medals or recognition. I want to know if this country will remember a soldier who had no family, no wealth, and no fame. Will you still care about us when the war's over and the cameras are gone?" The room was still. Walter closed his eyes. "That's Eddie. Always thinking of others." Trump stood silently, holding the letter. He didn't ask for anything, only remembrance, dignity, and human decency. A veteran in the back wiped his eyes. A young soldier bowed his head. Clara rested her hand on Walter's shoulder. Trump looked back at the audience. "That question isn't just for me. It's for every leader, every citizen. Do we remember those who gave all even when there's nothing left to give them in return?" Then, looking back at Walter, he said, "Thank you for keeping this." Walter smiled. "It was my duty." Trump realized this wasn't about politics. It was something far greater. A woman stood up. "My grandfather died in Korea. We never got answers. This means more than you know." Others followed. A young Marine stepped forward in full dress. "We remember, sir. All of them." A murmur turned into applause, soft at first, then growing. But Walter didn't smile for the cheers. He turned to Clara. Eddie didn't want fanfare. He wanted real change. Trump nodded. "He's right." Then he turned to the veterans. "Starting today, we'll build a memorial for the forgotten soldiers, those without funerals, without flags. This will be their voice." The crowd responded with heartfelt gratitude. Walter wiped away a tear. He'd be proud. "But you're not done yet." Trump raised an eyebrow. "I'm not?" Walter shook his head. "There's something else. Eddie wanted you to have." Clara looked surprised. "There's more?" Walter gave a faint smile. "You'll see." Clara reached into a side pouch on Walter's wheelchair and pulled out a small wooden box. The mahogany was worn, engraved with the initials E.C. Walter gestured to Trump. "He wanted you to have it." Trump accepted the box carefully. He opened it to reveal a slightly tarnished bronze star. Beneath it lay a note. "For the man who remembers when others forget." Trump was speechless. "He received it posthumously," Walter explained. "But he had no family, so I kept it. He told me to give it to the person who truly understood why he fought. I didn't know who that would be, but now I believe it's you." Trump's voice wavered. "I don't know if I deserve this." "You didn't earn it in battle," Walter said. "But you answered his question. That's what counts." It wasn't new or shiny, but it was sacred. And now it had found its rightful home. Trump returned to the mic, holding the photo, the medal, and the letter. "Eddie Carter, a name I'll never forget." He turned to an aide. "Find everything about him, his service, his hometown, all of it." Then to the crowd, "We're not just building a memorial. We're telling their stories, starting with his." The room clapped softly. Walter whispered, "He just wanted his story told, not for fame, but so others like him wouldn't be forgotten." Clara wiped her eyes. "And you made sure he wasn't," Walter nodded. "That's what friends do." Trump stepped down and placed a hand on Walter's shoulder. "You're a hero too." Walter smiled. "Just the messenger." Trump nodded. Sometimes the messenger matters most. A quiet sense of closure settled across the room. But no one could have imagined how far Eddie's story would travel. By the next morning, headlines read, "Trump silenced by forgotten soldier's letter." Clips of Trump reading Eddie's words spread everywhere. People who had never known Eddie, Carter now spoke his name with reverence. Walter watched the coverage at home, Clara by his side. She smiled, eyes damp. "You did it. Eddie's voice is finally being heard." Walter nodded. "He's reaching more people now than he ever did in life."